God, I can't believe I'm actually writing this out. But here goes nothing. I, 30 farads, am at my wit's end with my so-called family, and I need to vent before I completely lose it. Buckle up, folks, because this is going to be a long, messy ride. 5 years ago, just after my 25th birthday, my whole world came crashing down around me. I had a great job as a marketing executive at a startup, my own cozy apartment in downtown Chicago, and I thought I had a pretty decent relationship with my parents. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I always thought we were solid. Boy, was I wrong about that last part. It all started on a chilly October evening. I remember it vividly because I had just gotten home from a grueling day at work, ready to relax with a glass of wine and my favorite Netflix show. That's when my phone rang. It was my dad, and his voice sounded off. He asked me to come over to their houses immediately, said it was urgent. My stomach dropped. In my family, urgent usually meant someone was in the hospital or worse. I rushed over, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Cancer? A car accident? I was not prepared for what was waiting for me. Both my parents were sitting in the living room, looking like they'd aged 10 years overnight. And there was a man I didn't recognize, probably in his early 50s, sitting awkwardly on our old recliner. The tension in the room was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. That's when my dad dropped the bomb. This guy, let's call him Mr. Homewrecker, was one of his old work buddies from way back. And he had contacted my dad to confess something. He and my mom had an affair around the time I was conceived. Can you believe that crap? Apparently, this genius had been sitting on this information for 25 years and suddenly felt the need to clear his conscience or whatever. I thought it was some kind of sick joke at first. I mean, who the hell does that? But the look on my mom's face told me it was all too real. She was crying, mascara running down her cheeks, saying it was a mistake, and that she had regretted it ever since. Well, excuse me if I don't feel sorry for you, Mom. Mr. Homewrecker had the audacity to say he'd always wondered if I was his daughter. He even brought up how my eyes were similar to his. I felt sick to my stomach. This man, this stranger, had been thinking about me, looking at pictures of me growing up, wondering if I was his. It felt like a violation. The next few weeks were absolute hell. My parents, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, started having these hushed conversations about what to do if I turned out not to be my dad's biological child. They thought I couldn't hear them, but let me tell you, those walls were thin as paper. One night, I overheard my dad say, "If she's not mine, we might have to ask her to leave. For the sake of our family's peace." My own father, talking about kicking me out like I was some stray dog they'd taken in. And my mom? She just sat there, nodding along like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in my old bedroom, staring at the glow in the dark stars on the ceiling that I'd put up when I was 12. I remembered how my dad had helped me arrange them into constellations, how proud he was when I could name them all. And now, he was considering throwing me out of the family. It felt like my chest was being crushed. I confronted them the next day, and you know what they said. "We're just exploring all our options. We need to think about what's best for everyone." What's best for everyone? How about not treating your daughter like she's disposable, you jerks? They insisted on a DNA test, which was a whole other level of humiliation. Having to go to a clinic, swab my cheek, and wait for results to see if I was really part of the family I'd been a part of for 25 years. It was degrading and infuriating. The nurse at the clinic tried to be kind, but I could see the pity in her eyes. She'd probably seen this scenario play out countless times. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that I wasn't like those other cases, that my parents were supposed to be different. But I just sat there, silent and numb, as she swabbed the inside of my cheek. The worst part, while we were waiting for the results, my parents treated me like I was already gone. They stopped asking about my day, stopped inviting me to family dinners. It was like they were preparing themselves for a life without me. And let me tell you, that hurt more than any DNA test ever could. I'd come home from work, and they'd be laughing in the kitchen, only to fall silent when I walked in. My mom would quickly wipe away her smile, like she felt guilty for being happy around me. My dad would suddenly find something very interesting to look at on his phone. It was like I was a ghost in my own home. I started spending more time at my apartment, coming up with excuses not to visit. Sorry, big project at work. Can't make it, promised a friend. I'd help them move. Anything to avoid the awkward silences and pitying looks. My friends noticed something was off, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them what was going on. How do you even start that conversation? Hey, so my parents might kick me out because I might be the product of an affair. Want to grab a beer? Yeah, right. When the results finally came back, surprise, surprise, I was my dad's biological daughter after all. You'd think they'd be overjoyed, right? Nope. They acted like it was no big deal, like they hadn't just put me through emotional hell for weeks. No apology, no acknowledgement of how they'd treated me. Just a well, that's settled then, and they expected everything to go back to normal. But how could it? How could I ever look at them the same way again? They had shown me their true colors, and they were ugly as sin. I tried to talk to them about it, to explain how hurt I was, but they just brushed it off. We were under a lot of stress, they said. You need to understand how difficult this was for us. For them? Are you kidding me? I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw things. I wanted to make them understand just a fraction of the pain and betrayal I was feeling. But instead, I just stood there, silent and shaking, as they went on about how we should all just move past this and be a family again. A family. What kind of family treats their daughter like a disposable commodity? What kind of family makes plans to kick out their child based on biology? I didn't feel like I belonged anymore. The home I grew up in, the place that was supposed to be my safe haven, now felt alien and hostile. I wanted to cut ties right then and there, but I couldn't. I was still in college, still financially dependent on them. So I did the only thing I could do. I shut down. I stopped sharing things about my life, stopped trying to connect with them. I was civil, sure, but that warmth, that closeness we used to have, gone, dead, buried. For the next few years, I focused on finishing my degree and getting a job. Every interaction with my parents felt like a chore, a necessary evil, until I could stand on my own 2 feet. They noticed the change, of course. They'd ask why I was so distant, why I never called just to chat anymore. I'd give them some excuse about being busy with school or work, but the truth was, I couldn't stand to be around them any longer than necessary. Holidays were the worst. Sitting around the dinner table, pretending everything was fine, making small talk about the weather and my classes. All the while, my insides were churning with resentment and hurt. I'd watch my mom pass the mashed potatoes, smiling like nothing had happened, and all I could think about was how easily she had considered throwing me away. I threw myself into my studies, determined to graduate as quickly as possible and get a job that would allow me to be financially independent. I took extra classes, worked part-time jobs, anything to speed up the process. My parents probably thought I was just being ambitious, but the truth was, I was planning my escape. There were moments, fleeting instants, where I almost believed we could go back to how things were. My dad would crack a joke at dinner, and for a second, I'd forget. Or my mom would ask about my day, genuine interest in her eyes, and I'd feel a glimmer of our old connection. But then, the memory of their betrayal would come crashing back, and I'd retreat into my shell again. Now, at 30, I'm finally financially independent. I've got a good job as a senior marketing manager, my own place in a trendy neighborhood, and I don't need a damn thing from them anymore. And you know what? It feels amazing, but it also brings up all these questions and feelings I've been pushing down for years. Part of me wants to confront them, to lay it all out, and make them understand just how much they hurt me. Another part just wants to ghost them completely, to cut them out of my life without another word. They don't deserve an explanation, right? Not after what they did. But then there's this tiny voice in the back of my head, wondering if I'm being too harsh. They raised me for 25 years, after all. Maybe I should try to forgive them, to rebuild our relationship, now that I'm not dependent on them anymore. God, even typing that out makes me want to scream. Why should I be the one to extend the olive branch? They're the ones who screwed up, who treated me like I was disposable. Why is it on me to fix things? I don't know what to do anymore. Every time my phone rings and I see it's them, my stomach turns. I've been ignoring their calls and texts for weeks now, and honestly, it feels pretty good. But I know I can't avoid them forever. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to make a decision about what kind of relationship I want with them, if any. Last week, my mom left a voicemail. She sounded worried, asked if I was okay, said they miss me. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt, but then I remembered how easily they had considered kicking me out, and the guilt turned to anger all over again. So here I am, Reddit, pouring my heart out to a bunch of strangers because I don't know who else to turn to. My friends try to be supportive, but they don't really get it. They all have these picture-perfect families, and they look at me like I'm crazy when I talk about cutting my parents off. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe I'm overreacting. Or maybe, just maybe, I'm finally standing up for myself and refusing to be treated like a second-class family member anymore. What would you do in my shoes? Am I justified in wanting to cut them out of my life completely, or should I give them another chance? And if I do decide to confront them, how the hell do I even start that conversation? I'm lost, angry, and so tired of carrying this weight around. Any advice would be appreciated, even if it's just to tell me I'm being an idiot. Thanks for reading this far, if you made it. It feels good to finally get it all out there. Update 1. It's been 5 days since my last post, and holy shit, have things taken a turn. I didn't think it was possible for this situation to get any more fucked up, but here we are. Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. First off, thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. Your support and advice meant a lot, even if I'm not in a great headspace to process it all right now. But I promised an update, so here goes. Remember how I mentioned I have a younger sister? Well, she decided to stick her nose into this mess. She's 28, 2 years younger than me, and we've never been particularly close. But apparently, she felt the need to reach out and tell me I should be more understanding of our parents' situation. Can you believe that crap? She called me yesterday, all high and mighty, saying I needed to be more mature about this whole thing, that it was sensitive and complicated. I nearly lost it right there. I wanted to scream at her. Were you the one they were planning to kick out? No? Then shut the hell up. But I bit my tongue. It's not worth the drama. But that's not even the craziest part. Oh no, it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Last night, I got a text from my mom saying they needed to have an emergency family meeting. My stomach dropped. What now? I thought about ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. So I dragged myself over to their house, half expecting them to try and ambush me with some kind of intervention or something. When I got there, my sister was already there. My parents looked nervous, guilty. I couldn't quite place it. That's when they dropped the bomb. Turns out, my dear mother didn't just have one affair. Oh no, she had another one 2 years into their marriage. And guess what? My sister is the product of that affair. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, the hypocrisy of it all. They were ready to throw me out on the street over the possibility that I wasn't my dad's. But here's my sister, who actually isn't, and they're all, family is more than blood. And we love you no matter what. I saw red. I couldn't help it. I just started laughing. A crazy, unhinged kind of laugh that made everyone in the room look at me like I'd lost my mind. And you know what? Maybe I have. I laid it all out. How they treated me 5 years ago. How they'd been ready to discard me like yesterday's trash. I asked them point blank why my sister got to be the precious daughter they'd never abandon, while I was disposable. You want to know the kicker? They had the audacity to say that things were different now, that they'd grown and learned from their mistakes. Bull fucking shit. My sister was crying by this point, saying she didn't want anything to do with her biological father, that our dad was her real dad. And my parents were comforting her, while I stood there, shaking with rage, feeling like I was 25 all over again, watching my world crumble around me. I couldn't take it anymore. I told them I was done. Done with their hypocrisy, done with their conditional love, done with all of it. I said I never wanted to speak to any of them again, and I walked out. That was yesterday. My phone's been blowing up with messages and missed calls, but I can't bring myself to look at them. I don't even know how I feel. Angry? Relieved? Vindicated? All of the above. Part of me wants to call my sister to see if she's okay. But a bigger part of me is still so angry. Why does she get all the support and love when I was treated like a pariah for something that wasn't even true? I don't know what to do now. I meant what I said about being done with them, but it's hard. They're still my family, as fucked up as they are. But I don't know if I can ever forgive this level of hypocrisy. So here I am, Reddit, back again, more lost than ever. Am I overreacting? Should I hear them out? Or should I stick to my guns and cut them off for good? I'm exhausted. Emotionally, physically, all of it. I can't stop replaying that family meeting in my head. The look on my sister's face, my parents' pitiful attempts at justification. It's all such a mess. Thanks for listening again. I don't know what I'd do without this outlet. Any advice is welcome, because I'm completely at a loss here. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and things have gone from bad to worse. 2 days ago, I was enjoying a quiet evening when there was an insistent knock at my door. I opened it to find my parents standing there, my dad clutching a thick manila envelope. They pushed past me before I could stop them. "We need to talk," my dad said, his voice cold and businesslike. They sat down at my kitchen table and started pulling papers out of the envelope. Turns out, my parents had their accountant go through years of financial records, tallying up every penny they'd ever spent on me. College tuition, rent, even birthday gifts and family vacations, all laid out in neat columns and graphs. "We've supported you for years," my mom said, "and this is how you repay us, by cutting us off." I couldn't believe it. "Are you seriously trying to bill me for raising me?" I asked, my voice rising. My dad nodded grimly. "We've always been there for you. We put you through college, helped you with rent. And now, it's clear you were just using us until you could stand on your own feet." That's when the shouting started. We went back and forth, dredging up every hurt from the past 5 years. "We were under stress," my mom wailed. "We didn't mean it. We love you." "Love?" I laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call it? Threatening to throw me out of the family? And now you're here trying to shake me down for money?" My dad slammed his hand on the table. "We're not shaking you down. We're showing you the reality of the situation. We invested in you, in your future. And this is how you repay us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Invested in me? I'm your daughter, not a stock option. The argument escalated. They accused me of being ungrateful, of having no moral compass, of using them for their money. "We would have been better off if you really hadn't been mine," my dad spat. I saw red. "Well, I wish I wasn't yours," I shouted back. At least then, I'd have an excuse for why my parents are such heartless, money-grubbing assholes. That's when my mom dropped the bombshell. "If you don't start appreciating everything we've done for you, we'll have no choice but to take legal action." I laughed in their faces. Legal action? For what? Being a disappointing daughter? My dad's face turned red. "We have documentation of every penny we've spent on you. We can sue you for breach of contract." "What contract?" I was bewildered. "Implied contract," he growled. "We provided for you with the understanding that you'd remain part of this family. You've broken that contract." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Get out," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Get out now, or I'm calling the police." They left, but not before my dad turned and said, "This isn't over. You'd better watch yourself." The past 2 days have been a blur. I've been jumping at every noise, expecting them to show up with lawyers. I've been ignoring their calls and texts, but they keep coming. Threats mixed with pleas for me to come to my senses and remember my family obligations. I'm at a loss, Reddit. I knew things were bad. But I never imagined it would come to this. My own parents threatening legal action against me? It's like I'm living in some kind of nightmare. Part of me wants to call their bluff. They can't seriously have a legal leg to stand on, right? But another part of me is terrified. What if they do find some way to sue me? I've been considering reaching out to a lawyer, just to cover my bases. But the thought of having to legally defend myself against my own parents makes me feel sick. I'm angry. I'm scared. I'm hurt beyond words. How did we get here? How did the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally turn into these monsters who see me as nothing more than a financial investment gone wrong? I keep replaying that argument in my head. The look of contempt on my dad's face when he said they would have been better off if I wasn't his. The cold calculation in my mom's eyes as she threatened legal action. It's like I don't even know who they are anymore. And you know what the worst part is? Despite everything, there's still this tiny part of me that wants to fix things, that wants my parents back. Not these twisted, angry versions, but the mom and dad I thought I had before all this started. Is that crazy? I don't know what to do. I'm scared to leave my apartment. I'm scared to answer my phone. I'm scared that at any moment, I'm going to get served with legal papers from my own parents. So here I am, back again, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet because I have nowhere else to turn. My friends are supportive, but they don't really get it. How could they, who expects their parents to turn on them like this? What do I do now? Do I get a lawyer? Do I try to reason with them one last time? Do I just ghost them completely and hope this all blows over? I'm lost, Reddit. More lost than I've ever been. Any advice would be appreciated, even if it's just to tell me I'm not going crazy. Because right now, I'm not so sure. Thanks for listening again. I don't know what I'd do without this outlet. Here's hoping the next update, if there is one, will be less of a dumpster fire. But at this point, I'm not holding my breath. Update 3. It's been 3 days since my last post, and the situation has escalated beyond my worst nightmares. Yesterday morning, I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications. My parents had created a social media account dedicated to exposing me. They've been posting screenshots of our text conversations, photos of checks they've written for my tuition, and childhood photos with captions about how ungrateful I've become. They've tagged family members, old friends, and even some of my coworkers. It's like they're trying to turn everyone I know against me. I felt sick scrolling through the posts. There were pictures of me at my college graduation with captions like, "We paid for this ungrateful child's education, and now she wants nothing to do with us." They even posted a breakdown of how much they spent on my wedding, which was called off last year. The comments are a mix of shock, disappointment, and praise for my parents' honesty and bravery. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Relatives I haven't spoken to in years are calling to ask what's going on. Some are sympathetic, others are angry and accusing. A cousin I've always been close to called in tears, saying she didn't understand how I could treat my parents like this. I tried to explain about the paternity scandal, but it all sounded so unbelievable. I could hear the doubt in her voice as I spoke. And Aunt left a scathing voicemail, saying she always knew I was selfish. Even an old high school friend sent a message asking if I was okay, saying this didn't sound like me at all. I've been trying to figure out my next steps. Part of me wants to create my own post to tell my side of the story, but I'm worried that would just add fuel to the fire. I've also been considering legal action. What my parents are doing has to be some form of harassment or defamation, right? I've reached out to a few close friends who know the whole story. They've been incredibly supportive, offering to help me draft responses or even to post in my defense. My boss called me into her office today. Apparently, some of my coworkers had seen the posts and raised concerns. She was understanding, but warned me to handle the situation quickly before it affects my professional reputation. I've been trying to get the social media platform to take down the account, but so far, they've said it doesn't violate their community guidelines. I'm at a loss, Reddit. I feel like I'm watching my entire life implode, and I don't know how to stop it. Every time I think about confronting my parents, I feel a mixture of rage and paralyzing fear. What if they have more dirt to share? What if they escalate things even further? Part of me just wants to disappear, change my name, move to a new city, start over where no one knows me or my family. But why should I have to uproot my entire life because my parents can't respect boundaries? I keep asking myself how we got here. How did we go from a normal family with normal problems to this? It's like I'm living in some kind of twisted nightmare, and I can't wake up. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm humiliated. But most of all, I'm tired. So incredibly tired of all of this drama and pain. What do I do now? How do I even begin to address this mess? Should I respond publicly? Should I pursue legal action? Should I just go dark and wait for it all to blow over? Any advice would be appreciated. I feel like I'm drowning here, and I don't know which way is up anymore. Thanks for listening again. Your support has been one of the few things keeping me sane through all of this. Update 4. It's been a couple of days since my last post, and I've finally taken action. After much deliberation, I decided to tell my side of the story publicly. I created posts on all my social media platforms, laying out the whole truth from the paternity scandal 5 years ago to the present. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, my phone was blowing up with messages, calls, and notifications. It was a mix of shock, support, and disbelief. Many relatives reached out privately. A cousin who had doubted me before called in tears, apologizing and saying she had no idea things were so bad. An aunt who had left a scathing voicemail sent a long email apologizing and offering support. But it wasn't all positive. Some family members are still on my parents' side. An uncle sent a message about how I was tearing the family apart. A few others blocked me on social media. The most surprising reaction came from my sister. She called me, sobbing. She had no idea about the paternity scandal or how our parents had treated me. We talked for hours, really connecting for the first time in years. My friends have been incredibly supportive, sharing my posts and defending me in the comments. A few even offered to let me stay with them if I needed to get away. As for my parents, they sent an angry email accusing me of lying and manipulating everyone. They threatened to sue for defamation and said they were glad to be rid of such an ungrateful child. It hurt, but it confirmed I was making the right decision. After their email, I made the difficult decision to completely cut ties with them. I blocked their numbers, email addresses, and social media accounts. It feels strange and scary, but also freeing. My boss called me in again, this time to offer support and assure me the company has my back. The social media platform finally took down my parents' account after numerous reports. I'm exhausted, but I feel lighter than I have in years. For the first time, I'm not carrying the weight of my parents' expectations and manipulations. I'm not constantly worried about what they might do next. Of course, it's not all smooth sailing. I still have moments of doubt and fear. I worry about running into my parents somewhere. I'm sad about the relationships I've lost with some family members. And I mourn for the parents I wish I had, the ones who would have loved me unconditionally. But overall, I feel like I can finally breathe. I'm starting to think about the future, my future, without the dark cloud of family drama. I'm considering therapy to help process everything. I'm thinking about pursuing dreams I've put on hold because of all this stress. I know the road ahead won't be easy. Cutting ties with family, especially parents, is never simple. There will be holidays and milestones that feel strange without them, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. To everyone who's been following my story and offering advice and support, thank you. You've helped me more than you know. Your words gave me strength when I felt weak, and your support helped me find the courage to stand up for myself. For those dealing with toxic family members, know that you're not alone. It's okay to prioritize your own mental health and well-being. It's okay to set boundaries, even if those boundaries mean cutting ties. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'll face it on my own terms. No more manipulation, no more guilt trips, No more walking on eggshells. Just me, living my life the way I choose. Thank you all again. I may post another update if anything significant happens, but for now, I'm focusing on healing and moving forward. Wish me luck.